How many times have you felt that burning surge of motivation? You watch a video, you read an article, and you declare, "That's it. Tomorrow, everything changes. I'll work 10 hours straight. I'll start running 5 miles every day." But how often does that fire actually last? If you're like most of us, that brilliant spark fades within 72 hours, leaving behind a cold, familiar feeling of disappointment. If motivation is supposedly the key to success, why do we constantly fail when we feel so much of it? The truth is, motivation is useless without its quiet, disciplined twin. This is the story of Ethan, and the secret he discovered from a simple lighthouse keeper. Ethan lived in a quaint coastal town, his attic studio overlooking the tumultuous Sapphire Sea. He was an aspiring sculptor, his heart brimming with visions of magnificent works. Every few months, he'd visit grand galleries, marvel at masterworks, and feel a fervent spark ignite within him. "This is it," he'd declare, his eyes ablaze. "Tomorrow, I'll carve for 10 hours straight. I'll create a masterpiece." And he'd start with gusto. The first day, the clay would yield to his touch, a joyful dance. The second, a flicker of doubt would creep in. By the third day, the spark would dwindle, replaced by the tedious reality of shaping and refining. "It's just not flowing," he'd sigh, setting aside his tools, lured by the calls of the beach or the warmth of his bed. Days turned into weeks, his studio slowly filling with half-formed busts and abandoned figures, each a monument to his fleeting motivation. The frustration gnawed at him, a constant whisper of "you're not good enough." One blustery afternoon, seeking refuge from his own thoughts, Ethan found himself at the town's ancient lighthouse. Inside, old Silas, the lighthouse keeper, a man whose face was etched with the wisdom of 1,000 storms, was polishing the colossal lens. He moved with a quiet, unhurried grace, his hands performing a familiar, daily ritual. "Silas," Ethan began, the words tumbling out, "how do you do it? Every single day, through fog and storm, you climb these stairs, you clean this lamp. Don't you ever just lose the motivation?" Silas paused, his eyes twinkling in the lamplight. "Motivation, young Ethan, is like the storm-tossed waves outside, powerful, yes, but unpredictable. My work, however, is like the lighthouse beam itself. It needs to be constant." "But what if you don't feel like it?" Ethan pressed. Silas chuckled, a sound like gravel rolling in the tide. "The sea doesn't care if I feel like it. The ships depend on this light, regardless of my mood. It's not about wanting to do it, Ethan. It's about committing to doing it, day in and day out. That's discipline." He led Ethan to a small, worn table. On it lay 2 objects. "Look at this river stone," Silas said, holding up a perfectly smooth, oval pebble. "For centuries, the river flowed over this. Not once did the river say, 'I don't feel motivated to erode this rock today.' It just flowed, consistently, relentlessly. And what was the result? This perfect smoothness, shaped by countless tiny, consistent efforts." Then, he picked up a rough, uncut diamond. "And this. Do you know how a diamond gets its brilliance? Not from one grand, inspired stroke. It's countless hours of precise, repetitive faceting by a skilled hand. Each tiny cut, each deliberate polish, seems insignificant on its own. But together, they transform a dull rock into something breathtaking. The gem cutter doesn't wait for a burst of diamond-cutting motivation. They commit to the process. Piece by painstaking piece, Silas's gaze returned to the sea. Your sculptures, he continued, are your diamonds. Your daily work, no matter how small or uninspired it feels, is the faceting. Each touch of the chisel, each moment spent refining, is building the brilliance. Even when you see no immediate change, the consistent effort is deepening the roots, strengthening the foundation. He motioned for Ethan to follow him outside, to the base of the colossal structure. You know, Ethan, the grandest oak tree spends years underground, unnoticed, building an immense root system. Nobody cheers it on during those hidden years. But without that silent, consistent work, it could never withstand the storms or reach for the sky. Your art, like that tree, needs its unseen roots. He patted the cold solid stone of the lighthouse. This very lighthouse, Ethan, was not built in a day of inspired passion. It was brick upon brick, layer upon layer, each precisely placed, each cemented with consistency. The builders didn't wait for lighthouse motivation. They followed the blueprints with unwavering discipline. That's why it stands tall and guides ships through the fiercest gales. The old keeper's words resonated deep within Ethan. He returned to his studio, not with a sudden burst of energy, but with a quiet resolve. He set a simple goal: 1 hour of focused carving every single morning, rain or shine, inspired or not. Some days it felt like pulling teeth. He'd sit there, his tools heavy in his hand, his mind a blank. Other days, a small breakthrough would happen. A line would finally look right. He stopped looking for that fleeting spark. Instead, he focused on the steady flow, the consistent, almost meditative act of just showing up. The discarded figures became lessons, not failures. The unfinished busts became patient teachers. Months passed. The initial frustration faded, replaced by a quiet satisfaction. His hands grew stronger, his eyes sharper, and then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, something shifted. His figures began to breathe. The forms he envisioned in his mind found their way into the clay with greater ease. The small, consistent efforts had indeed built his root system, sharpened his facets. One day, standing before a completed sculpture of a mermaid rising from a wave, his heart swelled not with a fleeting spark, but with a deep, enduring pride. It wasn't just a work of art. It was a testament to the power of daily discipline. He finally understood. Motivation might ignite the dream, but it's consistent discipline that forges it into reality. The river never stops flowing. The diamond never stops being faceted, and the lighthouse never stops shining. So, never underestimate the power of showing up. Your small, daily efforts are creating the foundation for your masterpiece. Don't wait for inspiration. Commit to the routine. If this story reminded you that it's time to ditch the motivation cycle and embrace discipline, smash that like button to show your commitment. And to keep receiving stories that guide you on your journey to success, make sure you hit subscribe and ring that notification bell. Now, I want to hear from you. What small, consistent action will you commit to starting today? Let us know in the comments below.